So hi everyone. Thank you all so much for joining the conversation with student leaders in food justice. My name is Juhi. I will be kind of facilitating. This is going to be like a casual conversation. So just to get some of our direction started, I think we're just going to start with introductions first. And then I guess my approach is probably just I'll start and then we'll just popcorn everyone. Yeah, my name is Juhi. I use she, her pronouns. Third year in the community food system concentration of agroecology. So not only part of the major, but a lot of us are part of the agroecology club. So I'm presiding over that for this year. I'm also the Center for Environmentalist Farming Systems Communications Assistant, part of this NC State Stewards Program. So yeah, just to give a little introduction, but and I'm also minoring in Spanish, so kind of all over the place. But that I can just popcorn to Andrea, and then I get you started too.
Hi y'all, give me 1 second. Let me close my door because my dog is barking. Okay, perfect. I'm Andrea. I am a senior majoring in agroecology. My dog's name is Gigi. Yeah, Gigi is the best. But pretty much I am, organizing in an organization called El Pueblo right now, and I have been for a few years. I'm also an agroecology club member, and shout out to Juhi and all of the other leads that do an amazing job on that. I use she, her pronouns, and I graduate next semester, so I'm excited but also nervous about what's coming next. I'll pass it to Cole.
Thanks, Andrea. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you. My name is Cole Lee, and I am also a senior in the agroecology program studying community food systems. I decided to pick up a minor in extension education. Extracurricularly, I work on projects with the Episcopal Farm Worker Ministry. I'm part-time there, so we do a lot of work with farm workers in Eastern North Carolina. You can ask me about the research I've been doing very informally about reparations and specifically the history of land-grant universities. I believe we've been talking about having a working group to talk about that, maybe read some papers and have some discussions. I'm going to popcorn it to somebody who I don't know, and if y'all do not want to participate in this way, you can simply just pass and listen to us. But can I pass it to Martina? Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I'm not part of, I don't know if I'm part of the conversation, but can I still introduce myself then? Okay, cool.
I mean, there's only a few people. It'd be great to get to know you.
Oh, yeah, yes. Oh, well, let me turn my camera. My name's Martina, and I'm just the student coordinator for the Sustainability Stewards at NC State, but I do a lot of work with clean energy, which is why I'm here to learn a different perspective.
Thanks so much. You want to pass it on to somebody? We're happy you're here, Martina.
Oh yeah, I will pass it on to Mary.
Hey y'all, my name is Mary. I use they, she pronouns. I am a agroecology student. My concentration is community food systems. I'm a senior, so I'm graduating this semester. As y'all know, I talk about it all the time. I'm also part of the agroecology club. And I'm part of the Feminist Collective, which is a student organization on campus that exists to support pre-existing gender equity and social justice related organizations by providing spaces for connecting and collaborating and creating. And they're super cool. And I serve as, they have a program called the Ambassadors, where different organizations represent their organization, kind of serve as the main point of contact between the two organizations. So I'm also the agroecology ambassador for FEMCO, and that's where we're starting to really look at those intersections of agroecology and social justice and talking about food justice. And like Cole was saying, with starting to make a working group to talk about reparations at NC State as a land-grant university. I'm really excited to see where that could go. I feel like we have a lot of capacity as students to kind of make that change and see what other universities have done with reparations. So really excited about that. I'm involved with a couple things that we can talk about tonight as well. I do my own independent research project with a PhD student here at NC State named Holly Benton, where we've been looking at food system inequalities and looking at the social forces that actually lead to change in food sovereignty. So that's going to be a meta-analysis of different research about alternative food systems, where we're kind of critiquing alternative food systems for not being, what's the word? I guess, I don't want to say radical enough, but that's kind of what it is, talking about how they need to kind of really center social justice to kind of see these changes that we want to see. I also work on another research project through SEFS and RAFI, where we're looking at farmer mental health and how that relates to financial crisis. And that's been a really enlightening project that I've been involved with. I also, my senior project, I'm working on developing a food justice curriculum for NC State. And I was part of the food justice fellowship program through West Virginia University, where I kind of was first exposed to food justice. So there's all these different things I've done that I'm really excited to talk about tonight with y'all and see how folks can get more involved with the food justice movement. So I'm gonna go ahead and popcorn it over to Mary Grace.
Thanks, Mary. My name is Mary Grace. I'm a senior in agroecology with a concentration in community food systems. I graduate next spring because I'm taking 12 and 13-hour semesters instead of 18-hour ones. I am currently doing my internship through AmeriCorps at the Interfaith Food Shuttle, working with their community health education department for a couple different projects. And I'm also working out at the agroecology farm. I worked out there last year for a short time until everything got locked down, and then finally got word that I'm going to be able to do that again this year and work on the project that I got okay to do last year. So that's good. I'm a member of the agroecology club. I just started being the AgriLife Council, one of the AgriLife Council members for the agroecology club. And yeah, that's kind of what I do among some other things. So I'm going to pass it to somebody that I don't know. I'm going to pass it to Zainab. Am I saying that name correctly? Would you like to unmute and talk to us a couple minutes?
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Zainab, and I'm a PhD candidate here in College of Natural Resources. I'm glad to see all of you people, and what I've heard is very interesting, and I really didn't expect to see this much of activity regarding food security and food justice. My PhD dissertation is about food security in sub-Saharan Africa. I'm using geospatial analysis. I don't go to sub-Saharan Africa. I use remote sensing data and data like that to find the association between natural resources and food security there. And my previous research was about small-scale farmers in developing farming and the role of organic farming to help small-scale farmers to get out of the poverty trap and improve their food security. And related to justice, I'm also a part of a group research that we are working on climate gentrification on the east coast of the US. It has no food component, but it has justice component, I think. And also I'm an officer in ISTF, International Society of Tropical Foresters, and we are trying to develop the inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility kind of framework for foresters and have more diverse, what we consider as the core of our activities, that we don't want to have diversity just about what is visible, like the color of our skin or race. We think that the diversity in narrative is very important. So hopefully we will have more diverse narrative in forestry and natural resources. Thank you for listening.
Would you like to popcorn it to someone? Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, too.
Oh, sure. Adrian, please.
Yeah, thank you. Hey everyone, my name is Adrian. I'm agroecology and sustainable food systems major. I'm part of the agroecology club, and I'm excited to hear what y'all are doing tonight. And I'll popcorn over to Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric, member of the Agroecology Club, and I'm an agroecology and sustainable food systems major. And that's about it for me. It hasn't gone. LP Mancini, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. You gone?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Eric. I'm LP. I have been working on coordinating the symposium, and food justice has kind of become a recent interest of mine. I got involved through Interfaith Food Shuttle, first as a volunteer on their farm. Now I volunteer a lot for the Gardens for Everyone program. But I'm really just here to learn from you guys because I don't really know a lot on the subject. So I'm excited to be here and listen to you all. And I will popcorn over to Mary Haskett.
Hey, everybody. I'm a professor in the psychology department, and this is what the work that you guys are doing is way outside my realm. So I'm really here to listen and learn. Students who are involved in this work are such an inspiration to me. So I'm looking forward to hearing about the work you're doing, particularly interested in issues of justice and equity around food systems. I co-chair the steering committee on student food insecurity and homelessness here at NC State, and would love to have your involvement in that work. We just collected some data, and you guys are really addressing an important issue right here on campus. We've got almost 25% of students experiencing food insecurity, and we know that there's disproportionate rates among some populations of students. So I think that fits well with the equity issues you're talking about and striving to meet. So I'm looking forward to learning tonight. Thanks for letting me be here, and I'll pass it to Zachary. And I apologize, I'm going to be off camera because I actually have to go do some running around in the house. So I won't have those distractions going for you guys. Thanks.
No worries. So happy to have you.
Hello, I'm Zach. I'm a senior majoring in agroecology, and I'm in the agroecology club as well. I'm here tonight because I feel like I don't know as much about food justice as I probably should. So I'm really just here to learn.
Thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. So I guess one of the first questions that I think, since we all are getting familiar with food justice, is for people that would like to answer is, how would you define food justice? And this is open-ended, so.
There's a lot of really great versions of food justice, but just in layperson's terms, for me, it's an umbrella term for everything from food sovereignty, issues of gentrification, issues of justice, issues of human rights, issues of poverty. Wherever those intersect with food, which is impossible not to because everybody eats every day. So that's kind of how I see it in my own words. But there's some eloquent definitions. I'll try to drop some in the chat. Who else has got something to say?
Yeah, definitely. So the food justice is really a movement, and obviously I think with any movement they're very place-based. So what food justice looks like in one organization isn't going to be the same in another organization, because like Cole was saying, there's so many different things that intersect, because food is just part of our lives every day. Everyone eats, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of different issues that relate to that, especially when we're talking about food and not just consuming food, but the entire food system. So the food chain, from production and the inputs and the research and the processing and the distribution, and, you know, like restaurant workers' rights falls into food justice. Like, it's a very encompassing movement. I would say also, like, in short, you know, it has a lot of different principles and values and initiatives, but like food justice acknowledges barriers in our food system, and then it aims to dismantle the barriers to ensure, you know, that everyone has access to like food, but also, you know, that folks in the food system have safe jobs and living wages. I can't remember the statistic. I wish I could, because it'd be a little bit more powerful, but I think it's something like 5 out of the 8 lowest paying jobs in the United States are part of the food system. So don't quote me exactly, because I'm not sure if it's 5 out of 8, but it's a number like that. It's very, it just kind of shows you that with food justice, it's very important, and that there's a lot of issues in our food system from the start to the finish. So I'd love to hear other people, you know, elaborate on this, because that's kind of what food justice definitions are, just a lot of elaborations.
Right. Kind of going along with what you were saying, I've got a statistic here that says that in North Carolina, $14,000 is the average salary for a farmer, and that's 35% less than the national average. And so with food justice, we want to focus both on our communities getting healthy food, but also the people that are producing it. And a lot of those farmers are immigrant farmers. And so there are organizations like the Student Action with Farm Workers in North Carolina that focus on things like this. And I really encourage all of us to reach out to the organizations in our communities and try to get involved with them to really do the work and directly impact the communities that we want to see thrive.
I agree, and I'm glad you brought that up, because and a welcome to Catherine. Catherine, if you wanted to introduce yourself, we've all sort of just been like getting to know each other since it's such a small group. We're talking about like what is food justice right now, but I'm glad like Andrea and Mary, y'all touched upon sort of like the systems view of like food and like, you know, the food chain or whatever, and how that's all encompassing. So we need a systems view, which if food justice, it's a movement. So that power analysis, I guess, I think is what's like important, right? It's a movement, and it's for social justice, it's for equity, it's for human rights. And I love that, you know, you're encouraging people, Andrea, to like look outside of the university and outside of academia to you know, hit upon organizations who are doing the work, because I think that that's what academia should be for. You know, like Zainab, like you're using the tools of academia to study food security in sub-Saharan Africa. That's awesome. There's so many communities and cultures in that part of the world that influence our food system and our thinking in general. So I just think that's great. Same to you, Mary. Thank you for your work with homelessness and food insecurity at NC State. Catherine, did you want to say what's up? If not, you can totally pass and just listen. It's your choice.
Yeah, hi, I'm Catherine. Sorry, I can't have my video on right now. I also can only stay for a few minutes. I just wanted to pop on to be able to listen. I'm a sophomore at NC State studying industrial and systems engineering. And I'm just trying to watch as many of the events this week as I can. And yeah, very interested in food justice and not sure, yeah, if that will be like a career path or not, but just kind of exploring. So thank you all.
Heck yeah, everything that I've been to in the symposium so far, which has only been a couple of things, has been really awesome. So shout out to LP and Martina and Juhi and everybody else who had a hand in organizing it.
Can I
Who wants
add?
to take the mic?
I'm going to add something to what you said about being involved in organizations outside of academia. I'm involved in a lot of 501c3s, so that's a lot of nonpartisan or nonprofit organizations. But I also want to highlight the importance of, I guess, for those ag people the ag people in here, the more diversity that you can implement also in, I guess in ag, the better, but also in social justice, I think. So not all the work can be done through 501c3s. I also think it's really important for us to highlight that our community's needs aren't met through just nonprofit organizations. We also need organizations like mutual aid. And I guess thinking of one of them is Food Not Bombs, which I'm sure many of y'all are familiar with, and just making sure that we are diversifying the ways in which we want to help our communities so that we can meet all of the needs, not just particular needs that certain organizations are working on.
Yeah, Andrea, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I think just those community groups and are so important, because that's kind of like the front line people who are really doing this work. And I love that you mentioned Food Not Bombs, because their slogan is, I'm sure you know, solidarity, not charity. So they're very critical of the nonprofit industrial complex. And if you're not familiar with that, there's a lot of kind of information about it online, but it basically criticizes kind of the nonprofit industry. So not, individuals working in nonprofits, because for a lot of people, they see that as, where they can make the most change. But I think the nonprofit industry is like $1.3 trillion like worth. And it just really makes you think, because so much of nonprofits, the money that you're donating to them sometimes goes to like CEOs and not to like the actual cause you're trying to support. So that's the really great thing about, mutual aid networks, like Andrea was saying, is that, when you put in that time and energy and money into them, you're really helping out your neighbors and your community. And so that the money is going directly to the people who need it, and not, to the bureaucratic kind of process that revolves around nonprofits. I also think this is just another kind of example of like how diverse the food justice movement truly is. And already we've talked about so many different concepts. And I think it's really important to highlight, we've all kind of mentioned this already, but that food justice is social justice. It's really just social justice through the perspective of food. So I think when we get into the food justice movement and we start talking about it, it's important that we're also doing the work of social justice, and that we're educating ourselves on social justice. Because if we're not familiar with stuff like anti-racism practices, is like, you're not going to be able to have everything you need to fully show up for the food justice movement. I know, at least for me, I kind of came to the food justice movement from like a food perspective rather than the social justice perspective. I think because of, academia and being, I knew I wanted to do a major related to agriculture. So I kind of had to like back up and do that learning. And I would encourage folks that are trying to get into the food justice movement and learning more about it, to also make sure that you're doing that work around social justice as well, so you can support that. Also, I see that Zainab has a little hand up. Do you have a question?
I just want to add a quick things that some of you mentioned the human right in this conversation, and I think that's a very strong concept, and it has great potential to work as a catalyst in the area of food security, because maybe I don't know, but I think being food insecure has a kind of a stigma with this, and people feel embarrassed and and they also think that they don't deserve, and yeah, that stigma is the best word that I can describe. But looking at the food security and access to adequate food as a basic human right, I think it can help to kind of remove that stigma and also make other people feel more responsible. Yeah. And one more thing that I wanted to add is that this is very great that you young people have this conversation, because I was thinking, this is not actually my idea. I borrowed this from somewhere else. It was, I don't remember exactly what is the source, but this is not my idea. That they said people have something in English, your language, out of sight, out of mind. So when we don't talk about food insecurity, there is no attention to many people in North Carolina, in the US, globally, that are suffering from hunger daily. But each activity, including your activity right now, and all the excellent things that you are doing, it actually brings attention to this topic. So it's not going to be any more out of sight and out of mind of public and policymakers.
Thank you for sharing that, Zainab, because a lot of the issue I've noticed with my idea of I didn't know what food insecurity really was before I am in this study. And I've noticed just within my friends and community how nuanced it is, and that the conversation, or knowing when someone is food insecure, it is really the person doesn't feel, or any person in communities, they're not aware of it as that this is a problem. And it is also just so vulnerable to share that this is a situation that's happening. So yeah, breaking the stigma and just sharing, being authentic and sharing those stories, or just sharing those moments of around food within your relationships, I feel is so important, just as a person. But I think when it comes into systems and stuff too, it's those responsibilities aren't carried too. So yeah, I just had to share that.
Yeah, Juhi, real quick, I don't want to keep taking up too much space, but I really enjoyed what you were just talking about with food insecurity, and not all the stigma around it, but this project that I'm working on, this research project with farmers and their mental health related to financial crisis. There's a screener question that we do in the interview portion. And at first they were planning on asking are you food insecure? But because of the stigma, they realized that they can't even ask that question. And instead they rephrased it to say, how often do you and your family cannot afford the amount of food or the type of food that you feel you deserve? And it just shows that the stigma around food insecurity is so deep that even folks who are food insecure struggle to identify as that. And I think that's just some insight that I didn't really have until being involved with this project. And I just wanted to quickly share that, but I'll turn it over to Mary Grace.
Yeah, you guys are making some really good points. I just wanted to add that I kind of came to agroecology from the perspective of having experienced food insecurity. And so partly it was a way to combine agriculture with greater food access, and how to make that more sustainable within my community. And so that's kind of how I came to the major. And so a lot of the work that I've been doing with, different organizations the last few years has had to do with that. And and it makes a difference doing it on your own, but it's such a big, it's so ingrained in the infrastructure of so many institutions, not just in our country, but in other countries as well, that it's going to take a massive amount of people saying all the time, hey, this needs to change, this needs to change, you know, when are you going to change this for it to change? And I think that that's maybe one of the silver linings that came out of this difficult year that we're coming out of with the pandemic, was that you know, people couldn't push it under the rug anymore. You know, it was in everyone's face that, you know, hey, everybody is not that far away from being food insecure. You know, it's not just because people are lazy. It's not just because they don't want to, you know, go get a job, or they don't want to go buy food, or they don't want to take time to cook. It's because they honestly don't have the access or the funds to do so, which is very different. And, you know, to Mary's point about changing that question, with the surveys we've been sending out with the FAIRS program at the Interfaith Food Shuttle, which is a program for education and food access for seniors in Johnston and Chatham County that are African American and Hispanic descent. The questions on there specifically say similar things, you know, like, you know, how often have you missed a meal? You know, how often have you not had enough money to get the amount of groceries you need for the week, and that kind of thing, because there is such a stigma around it. And there's so much this idea of, well, if you just work harder, if you just work smarter, then you'll be able to succeed, and you'll be able to make enough money to buy the food that you need for you and your family. And that's not always the case. So. I'll pass it over to Eric because I think he has his hand up.
Okay, all right. Hi. I just wanted to say that when I think about food justice, I think about the harsh reality that it's kind of the international system, agricultural production and trade is fundamentally exploitative. You know, you see that with domestic farm workers here, and basically the conditions are like near slavery, or internationally, like banana plantations, coffee plantations, chocolate plantations. And in terms of trade, you know, a lot of these places that are producing these fruits, the governments are being strong-armed through, you know, international banks and the structural adjustment programs, and it decimates their domestic industries, and this creates migrants to Europe and migrants here, and you know, it's, yeah. So that's all I had.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's everything. Thanks for sharing that and putting that in perspective. And that's kind of the stuff that I think a lot of us, from having individual conversations with those of you I know, are really interested in, and we want more of that in our curriculum. So that's why I'm really stoked about Mary's new class with her capstone project. Martina or anyone else, do y'all study about international systems in that way in your areas of study?
So no, I study environmental technology and management, which is a mouthful and has nothing to do with food or agriculture. I've always just been interested in that act. And I guess, like, I don't know, I don't want to change the route where this conversation is going, but I'm graduating this semester actually, and I'm going to grad school. Again, it's not related to food or agriculture or food injustice, but I'm looking to see what I can do over the summer to not only educate myself, but also get myself involved. So I've already looked into Food Not Bombs. I know the Interfaith Food Shuttle does volunteering, but I just want to know what you guys think is, like, what's the best route for me? And then also, like, what's the way to get, how do I get other people interested? Because I forgot who mentioned it, but yeah, the first, I think it was you, Mary Grace, but the first thing they do when you're having this conversation with others that might not be well informed is that, oh, they just don't work hard enough, and that's why they're hungry, or, oh, just buy cheaper things, you can feed yourself. But that just can't be the solution. So, like, how do I also, like, help try and open up their minds? Because there's got to be a way to communicate with, while also just, like, I don't know, maybe I'm out of words, but yeah, just trying to figure out how to reach out to other people while trying to just be understanding. Like, I get your opinion, and I know that you're concerned about what kind of work they're putting in, but we need to see this through, like, compassion, you know?
Definitely. And I bet all of us have a lot of answers to this. Some are interesting to see these answers. But I would say, you know, this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about food justice being social justice. And I think when people say that, stuff like, oh, people just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps or whatever, they don't realize that, that like, I'm coming from like a bit of a sociology perspective because that's where my focus really has been. But that's like the myth of the theory of meritocracy, which is the belief that people, you know, get by through their own ability and not through their privileges that they have, whether that be, you know, their identity or money and that kind of things. So I think that's kind of where that conversation has to start, is analyzing your own beliefs, and when you're talking to people, their beliefs, and kind of forcing yourself to question why you believe that and what messages you've received from society throughout your life that make you think that certain people don't deserve food. You know what I mean? Like, to say those words, I can't believe that there's some people out there that think that if you don't work hard enough, you don't deserve to eat. Like I could just sit in that for a second and just think about that, because I could never imagine, like, you should not have to work to be able to have food. Like, everyone should be able to have food and shelter, like, regardless of who you are and what you do. So I think that kind of like is the perspective you kind of have to take and start from that like social justice perspective when you're talking to other people and try and get them involved. And I really like what you said, Martina, about how over the summer you want to do not just, you want to educate yourself and learn more about it, but also you want to get involved. And I think that's really important, because I think sometimes people start to educate themselves and that's kind of where they stop. And to kind of take it further. I know we've all been talking about food, not bombs, and you even mentioned it, but I do think that's a great place to start if you're in the Raleigh area, just because they are a mutual aid network and they're always in need of volunteers. So I'm sure that would be a great place to start, but any kind of community group in the area, you know, you can start tapping into those. I know Andrea does organizing with a community group.
I want to ask you quick, sorry, about Food Not Bombs. Do you work with them or volunteer with them?
I have not been able to, because I know that a lot of what they kind of need is people, like I've kind of reached out, but with cars and stuff and like deliveries is like a big thing that they do. And I've been saving up for a long time for a car, and I'm finally going to get one this summer. And then I'm looking forward to being able to be more involved and kind of more like helpful in that end. So we can share. I know sometimes getting involved with something new, it's a little easier to do it when you know someone else getting involved into it. So I'm sure we could kind of exchange contact between people here, and like Cole was saying, there's other people in agroecology who are really involved with them to kind of make that transition a little smoother.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I was just curious. I know they're always looking for people, but I obviously can't right now because there's so many responsibilities, but yeah, I just want to know their limits, like how much time should be dedicated. But I know I can also reach out to them because I follow them on Instagram, so I might just do that. But it's a good point. Yeah, a lot of people that always talk down people struggling with food insecurity are always the ones that haven't really realized their own privilege and what kind of platform they're standing on. But sorry, Juhi.
Yeah, I was gonna just share, this has been a conversation that like of getting more involved with Food Not Bombs as like within us as like agroecology club, or just like us, you know, organizing something that's a little bit more than just like posting off their what they need for donations. So we can add you on our like listserv and like our group chat. So if something does come in the future where we are hosting something that's, you know, to get more involved with Food Not Bombs specifically, we'll keep you in the loop for that. It just, this has been a thought that has, you know, that's germinating. And I also wanted to share within our institution, in our group, we have, I think a lot of us are familiar with the agroecology farm, but there's also a student-led organization called Soul Garden, which that I'm a part of and volunteer, and we're getting we kind of started it's been a little bit of a slow start with our site, which is near Parents Park. So that there's a lot of interest with, donating things for certain food pantries. We're trying to get more in contact with Feed the Pack Pantry, but also there's another organization that we're donating some things that for, I forgot what it's called, but there's some things that just have been planted to help with our community specifically, but that is like another interest that could help with getting more involvement. And I also wanted to share that within our institution, I've read Dr. Haskett's paper on like the food insecurity issues that we have on campus. And I was inspired with my other colleagues and Marisa, for example, of creating more of sites on campus that are potentially could have edible vegetation or cut lands that just have more, creating more of a community garden. So we also, with the Stewards program, have been trying to get a site near the tennis courts near Miller Field to be more of a demonstration garden, also educate people on these issues and also land ownership things. But that's just another thing to add on to with what's going on within our institution. But I think what you shared earlier, like when you were asking of how do I have these conversations, I think you kind of answered one of the questions yourself of extending compassion. And I think this is something that I struggle with is how do we have conversations or shift these mindsets of people of within ourselves and also with others. So I think there's this expectation to be change, be revolutionary all the time, but that's kind of a white supremacy kind of culture thing where we think of perfectionism and sense of urgency. But I think what you're sharing is a lot of the issues that we face every day, and we just work together and have hope. Having hope is really important, but I think extending compassion is so important. But yeah, I think that kind of hopefully that gives you a little bit of advice, but also direct things. And I think Mary Grace also shared a great point of asking others to get involved in posting. I think social media has been the height of movements and helping organize things. So hopefully that gives some insight too.
No, yeah, and you made a good point. Yeah, what I was trying to say is yeah, I'll be with conversations and people will just throw I don't think food is the basic human right. And sometimes I just want to be are you human? But I know that's not the way to go. So yeah, you're totally right. Compassion is really the best way, because honestly, that just, for some reason they don't react when you call them, when you ask if they're even human. But yeah, no, it's a good point. Thank you.
One more thing I just remembered, I know that you're going to be going to grad school at UNC, and Edible Campus is one of their big organizations that they actually help feed the campus I'm butchering the pantry's name, Carolina Board, something like that, Cupboard. And they have, it's a great program that helps students. You can go on campus and touch the edible plants, and we also know some great people that are part of it. So if you want to get in contact with some of them, Jaya Kulik is a great person too. And we'll put their resources too. Yes, Mary just shared. So
thank you. Something to look forward to at UNC already. Thanks.
I don't know if you want other there's the Fertile Ground Food Co-op. I don't know a whole lot about their background, but I have done deliveries with them before. So it's kind of similar to what Food Not Bombs does as well, where they will have families sign up and then they will deliver the food. So I think I have let me just copy their website link and drop that in the chat for you really quickly. But that is a direct way to impact, I guess, food insecurity. But if you're thinking about more of the farmers' rights, that's where student action with farm workers really focuses on protecting, and working on the social justice aspect of undocumented farm workers and farm workers in North Carolina in general. Oh, there you go. Cole dropped it in the chat. Thank you, Cole.
I wonder if anybody else has anything to say about changing minds, because I feel that you know, Martina, I'm sorry that you had to, you know, listen to somebody tell you that to your face. Like, that bums me out, just, you know, hearing it. And but I don't know, me personally, I think it's more effective to work and build with people who already have a common understanding and get stronger, because the synergy that you'll create, for example, like our agroecology group, you know, I often just take a step back and like watch what happens, and it's really awesome. It gives me more power and more confidence to, I think us as a group are stronger in changing people's minds, even just by like modeling a, you know, good group of friends who listen to each other or whatever, like, than somebody directly. Not to say that, you know, there's a time and place for calling people out, but I don't know.
I think to add to that, and I really agree with that statement, Cole, of like trying to strengthen the people that, like, the connections that you have that already agree with you. But when it comes to like talking to family members or close friends who just don't agree with you, I think a big aspect of it is not shaming them. Because, you know, we all have a lot to learn in all aspects of life and in social justice in general. And so really being open to saying like, I don't shame you for thinking this, and providing resources. Because there will be a point in our times where we will also need someone to say, hey, I don't judge you or shame you for thinking this way, but here are resources, and just really help people and guide people to learn with you as well.
Those are good points, Cole and Andrea. For me, it's kind of been like with those family members and people that are just like completely like, that's not how it works. At some point, it's like, it's almost easier to be like, hey, do you want to see what I'm doing at school? Or hey, do you want to check out what I'm doing at this location or that location? Or do you want to come with me to come pack grocery bags for seniors? Sometimes that's more effective, watching other people walk the walk versus me trying to just talk at them. Because sometimes they just have to hear it from someone else. Like sometimes I'm just too close for them to hear what they need to hear about it, you know, without getting defensive. And sometimes they just are going to feel like how they feel, and they have every right to feel how they feel, just like I feel how I feel. And you know, that's part of it too, is understanding that not everybody is going to agree on stuff. But I had a professor challenge, well, she challenged the whole class, but like last year, I think it was last year, one of my last years at state, she challenged us, and she's like, you know, everybody has some form of privilege. What are you going to do with your privilege? And I had never had anybody challenge me that way, because I grew up feeling that I didn't have privilege. And so it forced me to look at what privilege I did have and figure out, okay, what ways am I using that, and how can I use it more effectively, and what can I do to advocate in that for those that maybe don't realize they have privilege, or those that don't have privilege, you know? And so part of that is having those conversations, and also just, you know, encouraging people to try something different. Like maybe not even like forcing the conversation, but just saying, hey, do you want to come, you know, help me out at the agroecology farm, or do you want to come help me out at the farm at the food shuttle, you know? And once they're out there, then they start asking questions that they wouldn't have asked if they hadn't been out there, because they didn't think about it. You know, they're just sitting in front of the TV or whatever they're doing, and they're not thinking about it because they're not in that environment. But when you change their environment and it's something new, then it gives them an opportunity to ask questions and think about things differently. And I think that is part of using that privilege in a good way, is like helping people have those opportunities, because I was able to have those opportunities, you know?
Thank you so much, Mary Grace. That like gave me chills, because for the reminder of that, sometimes you can be a little too close to someone for them to really see the other, you know, it's like it just gets a little too personal. But some other thought is that we also, we're going to an institution. We have a lot of access to research and resources, and just fundamentally there's so many barriers to that, like in terms of like language and just also, you know, getting like ability to even read those things and or learn about it, because we have spaces that aren't really as accommodating for people, and people just don't, or just community, everyone doesn't get that ability to, you know, attend an institution or university. So I sometimes have to remind myself of that, because the world that I live in is not the same as like others. So it's kind of like so that kind of reminds me of how do I do that within myself? Because I struggle with the same things that you shared, Martina, like of not knowing how to have these conversations, and just so sometimes it is just a matter of relearning and learning again, and also learning how I communicate with people, and how do I approach these topics, and how can I share it to someone who doesn't know anything and share it to them as like, how would I teach that to myself 2 years ago or a few years ago when I didn't know anything? So if that gives any insight.
Yeah, just to quickly add on to what everyone is saying, thank you everyone for sharing. In some of these tough conversations I've had related to different social justice issues in food justice and outside of food justice, sometimes I feel like people that I've had arguments with or conversations with will get defensive and be like, oh, like this is my opinion. And sometimes I have just literally used these words and tried to like help them understand that I'm not trying to like attack them, or that we're not trying to you know, disrespect their opinion, but I'm just saying like, I respect you and your opinion until it disrespects the existence of another human being. And like, that's what the issue is. And then you can kind of have that conversation about like, where is this happening? Why is this happening? And like really making that person understand that like, I'm not attacking you. And I know sometimes it can be difficult, especially when you're really passionate about issues. I know sometimes I can get angry during these conversations, and it, you know, trying to take a step back and breathe and try to, you know, what everyone's saying, like give that compassion. And sometimes it's hard to do that. It really is. When you're looking someone in the eyes that says, I don't think food is a human right, you know what I mean? But if you get angry and you yell at them, they're not gonna, you know, they're gonna just become more indoctrinated into their own views. So I think it's definitely harder said than done, but that's my little piece that I wanted to add on.
Yeah, and I want to say part of my journey in just learning about this was taking a science communication class at NC State. So I wanted to plug it in real quick. If you're not graduating yet, I would definitely recommend taking COM 289. It's like I said, science communication. What you described basically, Mary, is they called it the backfire effect, where basically, yeah, it doesn't matter if they know they're in the wrong, they will double down just because they're basically feeling threatened. So it was really interesting to learn about a lot of science communication theories, but definitely recommend it. It's definitely helped me so far in communicating science to just the general audience, but not just science, but, you know, just social justice as well.
Can you put it in the chat for the transcription?
What was I going to say? I was going to share, I think Cole mentioned the Episcopal Farm Ministry. So that is a great resource, the Beloved Neighbors training, that if you want to speak on it. I was also going to share that I think we all have been involved with the Center for Environmental Farming Systems, and there was a mention of the core committee. And one of the things that we have they have a lot of racial equity trainings and working groups. And we also have worked with or have been a part of the Duke Campus Co-Learning Lab. And a lot of these spaces provide these shared agreements within each other when you're having these conversations and having discussions based off social or food justice issues. And I probably will share some of that, those shared agreements, because those are, when having conversations, like hard conversations like these, this will, I think for your own journey, will be really helpful when just discussing and navigating this for yourself. So yeah, sorry, we were over time.
So much to talk about, so little time. There's no way
Yeah.
there's no way we can talk about food justice in an hour.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have had this conversation tonight with old friends, new friends. It's really good. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for all your thoughts. They were very helpful. Thanks for answering my question also. I took notes.
And all these resources will be shared and if expounded on if anyone likes to add any more.
If anybody, please join the Agroecology Club and get on our little calendar for all the events and resources that we share, and stay in touch with us. Thanks.
Do you guys do anything for the summer?
We have not planned anything specifically, but something that has been in our minds is a working group, and we are still coordinating that for timing. So maybe that could be something extended for the summer. But with COVID and everything, I think we're playing by ear, but open to hearing any suggestions so we can all coordinate that. But to talk about the working group, it's more just we haven't had our meetings yet, but it's just to talk about concerns that we have within our institution, so kind of expounding on some of these issues that we have talked about, but it's really open-ended. We just need to find a time. It's been the busy semester, so but that's something to put out there, and hopefully in the summer we can do something too. But yeah, and we have a Slack page, so we'll add that resource into.
Yeah, and since you're so interested, you should probably give one of us your phone number so we can follow up with you, because we're all doing stuff over the summer. It's just whatever you're interested in, like if you're interested in like building something or gardening. I mean, Zach is all